blockchain and AI. Now, with AI, you can expect within this year, we're going to see deepfake so real, you cannot tell the difference. People watching this on live stream, they will not know what's in here.
We're not here.
We're having dinner somewhere else. So to counter that, you need some form of digital watermark. That is actually a cryptographic evidence
that
this is real.
Yeah.
It's my signature, his signature.
Who puts that? The tech companies? By the way, they're so excited at the back. They're trading crypto on the back of Larry's comments.
It's all your fault. No, we control our private key. It's going to be public
It'll
key.
be personal.
We'll have control.
It's going to be like your irises, your fingerprints. It'll be a digital.
But it's stored on blockchain, witnessed by the global population.
Everybody knows.
Cannot be faked.
Yeah. But does this change everything for just capital markets?
It will. Yeah, I mean, my gosh, if we could tokenize bonds and stocks tomorrow, one of the great things that BlackRock is being accused of is how much vote we have. I wouldn't vote anymore because we would be able, through tokenization, to know the owner of record instantaneous, and each owner of record will do their proxy voting. I would love that outcome. No, but it would democratize investing in all ways that we can't imagine.
Even political systems, how you vote in a country, can be changed by that.
And do you think that, again, the Trump administration will accelerate that?
I think they're moving that direction. How far they actually will go remains to be seen.
But if you do have a digital validator, like your fingerprints or your irises, I mean, you could tokenize voting. You could do everything. And so it will change how we think and how we live and what we do. And
we've been talking to some Southeast Asian governments, including Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia. All of them historically have the populations who are trading black market bitcoins and what have you. But now the governments are realizing U.S. is driving a global policy shift. So they're now doing something very clever. They're saying, you know what, we're going to issue a new form of digital ID to every single citizen. Along with that is a digital wallet.
Which Brazil and India has already done.
You're both so fired.
There are two questions, and I have a third issue that I think, Ruben, you need to address. But let me start with the questions you have raised. I think first the issue of INEC. I think everybody is fairly aware that INEC, as presently constituted, has lost a lot of credibility. And it is very important that the institution gains this credibility. Otherwise, the stability of the country is going to be threatened, because when you have institutions that are not delivering, and especially a key institution like INEC, and if this failure continues, then it will erode not only, confidence in INEC, but confidence in democracy itself. And when that happens, you know the consequences. So let me come back to INEC. I think there are amendments that the whole country is waiting for. For example, that amendment, which I think late President Buhari refused to give assent to, which mandates INEC to use electronic tools and to use technology in delivering the result, is still pending. But more importantly, why should the president, whoever is the president of the country, who is an interested party in the election, be the one to propose the head of INEC? I think late Uwais committee has made very good recommendations, which have been blocked by those who are interested in manipulating INEC. I think we have to rescue INEC by making sure that the head of INEC is not appointed by a sitting president who is going to be interested in election. So there are a number of things that needs to be done. I'm not sure there is sufficient time for us to raise that, but I think the key issues are two. One, that INEC's credibility is at stake, and two, we have got to insulate INEC from political interference. If that doesn't happen, then it is the democracy that is holding the country that's being actually run down. And when that happens, there are consequences. The second question, if I remember correctly, which you raised, is where do we go from here? I mean, considering what former President Jonathan said. And I think it ties down with the issue that I really think you should be raising, because the whole gathering in Accra is around the crisis of democracy, that democracy is not delivering the expectations of the people. And in Nigeria, if you take the statistics from 1999 to date, that's about 25 years. If you take the indices of development, whether you are taking the paternal and maternal mortality rates, or if you are taking the GDP, the growth in the economy, if you are taking all the indices of development that you take, you will see that from 1999 to date, we have been going down the drain. In fact, the GDP for this year is said to be much lower, actually about less than half of what it was in 1960. In other words, this country, under this democracy, is actually going down the drain. And it is time to really ask, of what use, of what benefit is democracy if it cannot really deliver? Is democracy made for the people or people for democracy? If democracy is supposed to serve society, then it has failed in Nigeria. And it is time to start thinking of how do we really bring about a system that can work for us. I watched the debate from beginning to the end, and I was saddened by the fact that the elite that gathered there could not think out of the a box of Western frame of thinking. In other words, they were all, and especially the guest speaker himself, he was going round and round while admitting the failure of democracy. He was still saying that we should stick to democracy. And that doesn't make sense. I mean, you have admitted that this system has failed to deliver. And you are saying that we should still hang on to it.
That is our job. We don't run government, we don't run policies, but we have the intellectual capacity to frame a conversation. You understand? Let me now conclude by making you sad. The Nigerian Civil War was planned on the campus of the University of Ibadan. Somebody has to write a book on that, in which the Vice Chancellor, a prominent historian, you already know who I'm talking about, was also using his house to frame the project of the Civil War. You understand? And I'm not criticizing him, because when you cut segments of a conversation, it becomes a problem to those who are interpreting it. I'm not criticizing him. The Nigerian Civil War was led by an educated person who trained in England, one of the very first to have a degree to join the Nigerian army. The debates about Ironsi was framed for him by those who went to school on a unitary government. You understand? It is not that these intellectuals have not been talking, but they are also embedded in this very project you want to solve. So in the final analysis, you see how interest governs politics. And as interest drives politics, the very fact that you have a PhD doesn't mean you will think the way you are talking about. And let us This is noise coming up sound. Welcome, 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 welcome. So let's talk about the brouhaha that is keeping the obedient up. Anyway, three people. Three. Like, that's what you have to do. Or get it fuck out. So I'm disappointed in the obedient. I don't go lie. Highly disappointed. At this point, I will begin to question if they have a think tank department at all within the obedience movement, because I don't see any strategy here. What is the goal in even pay attention to Sowore in the first place? If there's anybody who is winning the fights, it's Sowore. Sowore 2027 strategy is predicated on two things: protest and the obedient. The obedient serve the influencer that the zone movement lacked. Well, according to him, then Obi's thief in followership. That amplifying machine that the Take It Back movement lacked. That's the purpose that the obedience are serving. Obedience are loud. So how do you take advantage of that? They are everywhere. They dominated the internet. All right, so how do you take advantage of that? Is to keep provoking them every now and then. Hit them what it is dear to them. That's what John Obi and Alex will put together. Alex and Obi have one thing in common. They have the same voter. They have the same followership. So what the Sowore is doing here is to make sure is sit down and say, "Come, how do I insert myself in this people conversation?" Right? He went to Aba, did all that. Yeah, that no catch fire enough. Of course, he was praised and all that kind of thing. But there's a need for him to, especially at this time of the competition. So, in other words, he has 18,000 soldiers. I mean, how many? What's the numbers of what's it called, votes that he has in 2023 compared to 6 million? So, as far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer. So, for him and the African Congress, AAC, the campaign for 2011, the thing no starts today. It started with the end bad government and fearless October, right? That's when 2027 started for him. So that is the protest angle. So the alternative to the ballot. So would they believe that the traditional election in Nigeria, it will not do the magic. They are auction, they are for sale. And I agree with him. Highest bidder. So his strategy is to use protest to delegitimize the current administration and build a grassroots base of revolutionaries
rather than just voters. But unfortunately for him, the revolutionary soldier that he is envisioning are gravitating towards Obi. So the revolutionary ideology that the Sowore continue to push, the whole idea is that Nigeria needs a systematic overhaul. Like, we need to destroy the whole system. I also agree with him. But how is he going to do it? I'm watching. So he needed a revolution rather than just change of persons, at the top, rather than changing personality, changing government, changing manager, changing leaders. He got focused the campaign on what? To feel more like a continuous civil resistance, pretty much. So it's a movement. One can also argue that that is also Obi's strategy, but that's a conversation for another day. Right? So why the constant aiming at the Obedience? So why many outsiders see Sowore and Peter Obi as opposition? I don't see it like that. Sowore has been one of the most vocal critics of the Obedience. So it only makes sense that his 2027 strategy involved drawing a clear line between the radical change and their reformist approach. So hence, you see, he constantly distance himself, regardless of how, either Nnamdi Kanu matter bring them together, or three-time voting, whatever that brings them together, every chance, always make it clear that I am not for this reformist. I'm for radical change. These people are just an extension of the establishment. So Sowore make sure he reminds the public that Peter Obi was part of PDP for years. He viewed the Obidient movement as a packaged version of the old system. Seen our old system, so I haven't seen the current system. So as far as he's concerned, never believed that the obedience movement led by Peter Obi will bring real change. That is his belief. So again, his ultimate dream, goal, whatever that he wants the new Nigerian to be, is predicated on what the Nigerian youth. That's what people seem to forget. That regardless of how he smile from time to time with the obedient, at the core of it, Obi is still his number one target. Because what? The Nigerian youth. So Sowore's strategy is to position himself as the authentic outsider who has never had any office. That's why he's constantly portraying Obi as a former governor who is too soft on the status quo. That's a very legitimate criticism, if you ask me. So anytime where they cross paths, either, as I said, Nnamdi Kanu matter or whatever matter come into their space, they should always have that at the back of their mind that come. And push comes to shove, this guy, go look back. So hence, the idea of coalition is off the table for him. So he has explicitly said that joining any opposition coalition that include PDP or APC members, essentially telling Obidients, another group, that they must join his ideology, not the other way around. So the obedience seems to get carried away of what the man really stands for. That it's only a matter of time. He just will amplify him. As I said, his strategy going to 2022 is just a good strategy. Protest, which is aimed at the government in power, and the Obidient, because the Obidient are the second loudest microphone outside Arthur Rock. But whether we like it or not, the presidency hold the biggest microphone at this point. But the next person in line in terms of who will, the biggest microphone is the Obidient. Knowing that, just like as it is fame is in ideology and its pursuits, the Obedience too are also very firm, with what they believe is the man for the job. The OB. So both of them are standing on a rock that when push comes to shove, everybody will fail, will serve his masters. So since that is the reality, and you still need them to keep putting you on the national conversation, it's just to keep they provoke them at every chance. Why the Obedience should sit down and ask themselves, why is that the northern elite, the politicians are not even there, as far as they are concerned, Sowore know they exist. Not because of that, not because they are scared of him, not because they are the most corrupt. No. They just say, okay, the guy, one, he has no electoral value. So what's the point? That's what to him. Two, either way you respond to him, you are actually helping his cause. Because the goal is to make sure he's not relevant in the north. So if you keep paying attention to him, before you know, the younger ones in the north will begin to ask, why is this guy, keep provoking our leader? There must be something there. Right? So the northern leaders understand that fire. Okay, leave this guy. Maybe in time, maybe by 2035 or by 2039, when Sowore will be of age, quote unquote, in the Nigerian context. That might change. But as it is, they just believe there's nothing like Sowore. So I think, as far as I'm concerned, that is the approach the Obedience should do. Why do they give so much attention to somebody who are not in the same league according to INEC? It doesn't make sense to me. So Sowore is the one benefited in all this brother. So because constantly, whether you like it or not, anytime we Obedient respond to them, they can go viral, and that's a national conversation. Even if the mainstream media don't focus on it. After all, the Sowore target is the youth, and the youth have pay attention to what the influencers of social media are talking about. So the man is I think, as far as I'm concerned, outside the Renew Hope movement, the government in power, at this stage of the competition, Sowore is doing well too. Because if at every tweet or statement we get some of the most important voice of the Obidient movement going for not just 28 hours, 48 hours. I mean, that's a win-win for him, regardless of how they do it, because nothing they won't talk about Sowore now that is necessarily going to be new. Instead, you are just harming the Sowore himself to keep coming at you. So Sowore is very focused on this 2020. And again, the Obedience should ask themselves, what will be a win for Sowore at the end of the election? So that's how competition thing. All right. If you are going into the Olympics as a sprinter, You know who has the capacity to make the semi-final, who will make final, who will make final just for for the sake of making final, and that's a win for that person. Because if you make the final, it means you're among the fastest 8 people on the planet. So it's a win. Increase your profile, increase your visibility, increase your appearance fee, increase your sponsorship, and all that kind of a thing. It's a win, right? So as far as that person is concerned, that is his own gold medal, right? So you, if you say you are maybe you are among the top 2, top 3, sprinters in the world, that guy will be actually the least of your problem. You will not be worrying about that. If at the end that guy make the final, you go celebrate it as a congratulations. You'll be focused on, okay, who is in position to actually take my gold away from me? So in this case, I expect the Obedience to be thinking at that level, because winning for Sowore here means that he even finished fourth. If he finished fourth, it's a win for him. If he has 20,000 votes, it's a win for him. In fact, being on the podium, mentioning those people's name along his line is also a win for him. Because age you day inside compared to the rest of them. So I expect the Obedience should not be paying attention to whatever Sowore is doing or saying in regards to them. It's just focus. Focus on your article should be their focus. As far as I'm concerned, article should be their focus, because there is no way I think Obi will deputize article. That means they are going to run a different platform. So Obi has the confidence that Obi has within the southern part of the country. It pretty much match that of the sitting president when push comes to shove, right? So where the competition is in the north. And who is the man in the north? Is Atiku. Go after that man. Go after anything that made him politically. If you can flip Atiku vote in the north, hey, you are there. That's why I asked the question yesterday. Another focus should not be even be Konkoso. They should use Konkoso as an X-ray. Who again can we get in the north that will rival Konkoso followership or come close? In case Konkoso no join the Obi ticket. Because for me, I believe that is a more possibility than Sowore joining Obi. And Konkoso joining Obi. So those two things should be what the Obedience should focus on. Their think tank should be thinking. They should use that the crowd in Kano to say, okay, oh shit, what if this guy no join our camp? What happened? No join the ticket. What happened? We need something like this or something close. Who is that person that can put up this, something close and focus on that person rather than Sowore? And again, say, okay, who is likely to compete with me in the north? Me, outside Tinubu, because Tinubu is going for the same thing they are going for. Tinubu is not the Tinubu connection in the north in terms of the way the math is going. A lot of questions is being asked because of, a lot of things don't happen within the last 2-3 months. That actually put the country in a different trajectory in terms of power block, right? Prescribing Nigeria as a country of concern, follow it with a strike, missile strike, and follow it with the boot on the ground. That's something that has never happened before in the 60 years or 65 years of the country. But it happened within what? 2-3 months? Just like the saying goes, there will be a decade in which nothing happened, but a week in which decades happen. That's the story of Nigeria. So Nigeria don't move to a different. So the calculation, the power maneuvering and negotiation that brought Bola Tinubu into power in 2023 are up for negotiation. Pretty much every one of them, right? The lobbying that the Christian communities are carrying out in America and everywhere is working. So the Obedience have more things, more. Everything should be very clear to the Obedience. If they have a think tank, people who are strategizing. The road to 2027 should be very clear now than ever before. Because trust me, the APC are actually analyzing the crowd they saw in Kano. If it was giving focus to what he wants. So the obedience, you start thinking, what if that happens? So rather than wasting all your energy focusing on Sowore, who his goal is just to, be be count among the presidential aspirant or candidate. Focus on somebody who has what it takes to either take the gold from you, which is in this case Atiku. Tinubu is already the man to beat. There's no longer a people contest. He's the man to beat. He holds the gold medal. He's the defending champion. So yes, the goal is to take him out, to defeat him. So to do that, you have to now look across the starting block as, okay, who has the power to actually deny me opportunity to kick this guy out? So it's that guy. So if you watch 100 meters, as soon as they come out of the first phase, right, and they are approaching the last phase, the men will begin looking side by side. Am I in, or there's somebody? Do I need to push out? I mean, within those splits of seconds, a lot of maths they go on there. So now that is the situation I expect the Obidient place themselves. Who should we respond to? Right? If the northern bloc are not paying attention, they don't believe Sowore exists. Why should we? That's where we need votes. Who's this guy? Again, why you go travel all the way from anywhere, go Abia, and when they give her attention? Why you not go Katina? Is it scared? No, it's not scared, of course. But going into Katsina and criticize whatever the situation is in Katsina will not generate national headline or national noise like the way, because obedience will not waste time on that. But in the real sense of the game, that's what they should pay more attention to. If they should really go to the north and observe something, they should spend more energy on that in a way that will benefit them anyway. So Sowore knows he's not going to Maiduguri to do what he did in Amba, not because he's scared. No, it's because it will not generate national conversation, outcry, anger, like the way it's doing. So the man is people need to understand his own goal, what he's doing. It's not stupid. All right. Mass mobilization and civil disorder is a thing. That's pretty much what protest is all about. So that's one of the strategies. So no merger with the former establishment figure like Peter Obi and the rest is also his stance. Right? It's a stand because it annoys Obi's followership, annoys the Obidients. And because the Obidients are always put themselves in a position to react, to defend, they will always find a way to take advantage of them. When are you going to start be on the offensive side? And one of the best strategies in being offensive is that to know who to ignore, what to ignore. Sowore is worth ignoring. If you ignore Sowore, he pay you more than responding to him. I'm not saying this because I'm trying to be disrespectful. This is what INEC says. INEC say one get 18,000, one get 6 million. What's the base of comparison there? Why they promote the guy cause? You leave the top guy. You're supposed to dedicate the most fierce segment of your followership to Tinubu and Atiku. Don't show worry. mean, it's crazy seeing all the Obedience, big voice, where they respond to Sowore. That's crazy. It's crazy. I'm not supposed to understand this guy. The fact that people don't understand him is what obedience is what I don't get. It's not relevant to the at this point of the often sojourn.
One of the biggest political Ponzi schemes. You heard it from me in 2 years or 3 years. It's but it wasn't an alliance. I think at this point, after having realized that we were right, that our alliance is the most solid, which is the alliance of the oppressed. They keep going around the country to create an impression that they have alliance. So when parties want to align, don't they make public statements about it? You cannot just go to a Salah party and call it an alliance before people start entering clubs and calling it alliance. And what they must also recognize is that the time for lying to Nigerian people is over. So many of these very childish tactics have, as they say, they don't cast. So, but we have no problem against those who want to align with whomever they want. They must also understand that other people are entitled to have alliances. I may not align, because the problem most Nigerians have with their language and tone and rhetoric is that they are only the ones who have the right to align with whomever they want.
Without criticism.
Without criticism. And they are the only people who ask not to be criticized. I've never heard that before. If you are criticizing other people, you now say you can't be criticized, and like I said, you are not ready for prime time. And it is when you have something to hide that you run away from criticism.
Of course.
And you bully people and harass them. Oh, how dare you touch my anointed? That anointing oil has expired.
Imagine when such persons come to power.
Yes. So that's we have no problem, but we are more interested in our own alliance, which is the alliance of the oppressed, not this bogus alliance. We cannot align with people who ruined Nigeria. We keep saying it. We cannot align with the criminal groups who made sure that this country did not experience progress and development for 66 years. Those who are responsible cannot enjoy our alliance or respect.
Okay.
Yes.
For Peter Obi, last week you were saying that Peter is a thief. That is a thief, but is camouflaging not to be one. Now, just the very next day after you made that statement, he was seen going to visit Malami.
He was with Malami that same night. And Malami is officially one of the biggest thieves on trial in this court today.
He also advised the trial is
so I don't need to point anything to you. The hypocrisy that they represent, we keep putting them out. The people you should pity are those who are fooled by them. I'm not talking about those who are helping him to fool you or helping them to fool you. Those ones that justifies his criminal alliances. You understand? It's the people who, in their large numbers, are being euthanized by these lies. I feel bad for them because some of them are genuinely interested. They think they are involved in nation building or some kind of movement that will bring about change, only to understand too quickly and too early that they are part of a fraud, a political fraud scheme, syndicate, a Ponzi scheme, one of the biggest political Ponzi schemes. You heard it from me.
Yes.
That could be put together is all this Peter Obi movements that tells you today that somebody is a criminal, then the next day they are with the person, and they will justify why they are with the person. The criminal structure is no longer criminal. It is now structuring, and they are helping to restructure the criminal structures so that they can learn how the criminal structures failed. They are the only persons who go and learn how to fail. We teach people how to succeed.
We have been on the same position for decades.
We are talking about 36 years of doing this. So, but as you always want, I know you love it for content. It applies to all of them. And that's why I was telling you at the beginning of our press conference that any of them that I mentioned about their performance, let them come and dispute it themselves. Don't hide behind one influencer. I don't hide behind influencers when I say my own. I'll say it on national TV, if you are a thief, that you are a thief.
There's no crime in calling it.
There's no crime in calling a thief a thief.
Actually.
And if you are the treasurer to a thief, you are a thief too. Because when the thief steals, he'll come and keep it with you.
Nobody should even say the governor in this country.
Yes, son. It's not even about, I've told you, OT, who all of you are, I know the reason why they are upset about OT has nothing to do with it. They're upset about OT when they saw the organic crowd that received me in Aba. They didn't know that I could enter Aba without rice, And that is why their principal had to go and borrow people who are doing Salah in Kano. And they are celebrating it. Oh, Peter Obi was in Kano. He met with Kwakwaso. When did Kwakwaso become a saint? Is it not the same Kwakwaso you were abusing in 2023 that he's the saboteur for not working with Peter Obi? Suddenly, Kwakwaso is a saint because they borrowed you the crowd in his compound in Kano where they are eating salad. That's why I say be careful before they start telling you that if you go to a club, it's an alliance. If you go and attend a party, it's also an alliance. You go and attend wedding, it's an alliance. Well, those ones might have value. I don't know. But let's just play this honestly. Because if you are condemning the city boys, you will also have a right to condemn your village thieves. That's the truth. And by the way, we condemn both the city boys and the village boys, village girls, and city girls. All of them that are supporting the retrogressive, political system in the country all stand condemned. Whether they form themselves into village or city boys, all of them will be disgraced in this country.
How would you describe recent President Tinubu? A welcome development and can never be welcome.
If visiting UK is welcome development, then everybody that have traveled to the UK should be given the same welcome, heroes welcome. Clap for them. It's waste of your time and money. And I told you before, I repeat here again, some musicians, comedians, content creators who go to UK bring in more money from there than the Tinubu's visit. Tinubu's visit to the UK is to waste money. Some of these comedians will bring in Forex. And I value those ones more than Tinubu and his Jamboree team who went to see their former colonial masters. Thank you very much for the day.
I don't know why they give Sowore opportunity to use and shine.
A Ponzi scheme, one of the biggest political.
They give Sowore opportunity to shine. This is what I see here. Because at this point, as I said, Obidient need to have a think tank among them, people that actually blow the noise and just look straight into the competition and analyze it for what it is. Sowore is not somebody you should be responding to. Responding to Sowore is giving an opportunity to shine. Because to him, 2027 is not an election, it's a confrontation. So while others hunt for tickets and alliance, as he clearly, stated in that video, that every gathering, naming ceremony, birthday or Salah or whatever, is an alliance. So as other joy, which is pretty much speaking of Obi, that is directing it to, that as Obi run from one place to another for ticket and alliance, him, Sowore, is mobilizing for a reckoning. So to him, the Obidient movement is not the solution. It's more of a polite version of the problem, according to him. An hybrid version of the current system. So to match, no. To compromise, ban. So I believe in pure resistance. So I don't know why when is where it's going is very defined and clear. I don't know why the obedience who what they want is also very clear and different. Obi want to win election. Sowore wants to be among those that run for the election. So very clear. So why you not the wasting that time? So they will just they keep asking. Sowore, why you no join them? Why won't you unite with Peter Obi? Why won't you form a grand alliance to save Nigerians? Most of these journalists where they ask this kind of question are position, you know, in those kind of places to ask those kind of questions. Like the way they frame the question and set up. Let me see. This thing is coming up. So wait, I don't know where I'm as if my audio I want to know. Is it true? My audio is gone. Competition. I don't know. Right on election. It's a competition. I am horrible, I think. So when all the questions keep coming as coming to him, with the way that the way that they phrase the question should tell you that this now journalists where they lawyer to them, they frame the question like that. You know, the idea of why would you join them? Why would you unite with Peter Obi? Why would you form a grand alliance to save Nigeria? All those are set up questions. They are setting Obi up for him to finish. And the whole reason is even at the obedience, because they know the obedience will respond. And once the obedience respond, it's pretty much a national conversation and it's a win for him. This is what he predicated the campaign strategy on. As I said, obedience has the second largest microphone in Nigeria outside the presidency. So the presidency know they respond to round. So his two strategies aim at these two microphones. Protest is to aim at the government. Government know they did the answer like that. Instead they go use other parties to answer around. Then the second one is the next person in line who has a bigger microphone, which is the obedient. And how do you get the obedient attention? Go after the people they hold there, which is Obi and Alex. So it's a very simple and clever way of reading your position. People you see as your position and take the composition to them. Why the obedience are still being taken through emotional roller coaster? Tomorrow now, next tomorrow now, this person, they are not. So all those things are mentally deranged. It's enough. It's just too much for them. They don't allow them to focus. So them responding to Sowore is a way to just blow out steam. To see, so I see no reason why they will respond to Sowore. So once you ask frame the questions like that, why don't you join Peter P? Why don't you join coalition? Why don't you join alliance? You give me opportunity to just go ahead and just run his mouth. So he will always respond to you. So they will say, you don't think saving a burning house by inviting the people who brought the matches That's pretty much how he's going to tell you. He will tell you that Obi is part and parcel of the system. Why should I join it? According to him, they treat political party like Airbnb rentals. Everybody again new every day. Everyone has a new home in this mama and papa picking house. So the obedience should choose. Well, at this point, not every noise they should be responsible. They should treat Sowore as a noise maker, as their principal. So just ignore him. Yeah, and see how the media will quick forget him quick. So as far as it's concerned, the obedient is to the system that still play by the rules of the oppressor. So from his own perspective, you can't have a revolution with a permission from the judiciary. You can't win a mandate and then go to court to recover it from people who don't believe in court. So when you confront him with all those kind of questions, when you keep responding to him, as I said, you are giving the opportunity to just put you in a position to make him more trendy, to make him more visible, because it's all about visibility. Anything Obi do is it goes viral. So why not just target him? Because the media, the virality, the capacity for anything to go viral in Nigeria is heavily, in a way, tinted toward the obedience. Anything with the obedient, pay attention to, it goes viral. So why not just make sure you are always in their orbit? Provoke them every opportunity you get. So Sowore's strategy is very simple. In 2027, the streets. If you are not willing to die for your mandate, you ain't worth voting for. We have 200 million people being held hostage by 10,000 officials. The math doesn't add up. We don't need a coalition of the politicians. We need coalition of the angry, the hungry, and the tired. I sure is a lyric. So Obedience should start doubling down on labeling the Peter movement and social ideology, working the frequent party. How made them just dedicate to just small section, small segments of obedient warriors to the response to that. Maybe they just take only one person. They have many big platforms. They have many. Doesn't make sense that all of them will just come out the face Sowore. Sowore doesn't want out. Educated just one platform to run. That's it. Maybe they carry matter for head.
In the country, and his take on Peter Obi by
Yeah, go learn. Once they just make one platform focus on Sowore matter for the rest of the season. That's what they need to do.
Much for inviting me, and good afternoon, viewers from wherever part of the world you're watching us.
Good afternoon. So, what are your thoughts on Justice Salami's position on Peter Obi's candidacy in 2023?
Well, with respect to the learned justice of the Court of Appeal, as he then was, and I think he was the president of the Court of Appeal then, he was talking maybe with the mindset of the Electoral Act 2026, certainly not the Electoral Act 2022 that governed the 2023 presidential elections. If you check Section 77 of the Electoral Act 2022, it simply made provision that the parties should send the members, the register of their members to INEC 30 days, not later than 30 days before the election. It stopped at that, and that's 77.3. There is no provision that say you cannot be a member after that. And the Constitution is that once you're a member of a political party, that you are qualified to contest election. The Electoral Act 2026 wanted to deal with the lacuna that was found there. And they went forward to say each party should submit their digital register not later than 21 days before the election. Then they went further from Section 77 now to subsection 4 to 7 to state that anybody who wants to vote or be voted for must be in the register, and to state that the party should not use any other register apart from that one, and to state that any party that fails to submit the register will not be eligible to contest. These provisions were not there in the Electoral Act 2022. And so the court was right by saying that anybody who is a member of the political party is not disallowed by any law not to contest. But here is the point. The learned justice may not have taken time to read the judgment. I was part of the legal team. The court said that the issue of nomination is the internal affairs of a political party, and somebody who is not a member of the political party does not have the locus standi to question the nomination. So the court did not even bother much about the provisions of the law. They said that APC does not have the locus to question the nomination done by Labour, not being members of the Labour Party. So with respect to the learned judge, what he said did not accord to the provisions of the 2022 Electoral Act, and also did not accord to the principle of law that requires that you must have an interest in a matter before you can question that matter. In other words, the principle of locus standi. So with respect, what he said is not in accordance with the law. My own opinion.
And given that the Supreme Court already ruled on the 2023 elections, just like you spoke about, what is the legal significance of a retired president of the Court of Appeal raising these competence issues right now? Does it not suggest a need for some kind of clearer legislation on cross-carpeting for future aspirants?
Well, with respect again to the learned president of the Court of Appeal as he then was, this issue of competence of the court has always been raised, especially in electoral matters from 1999. I share the concerns because it appears that the learned justices do always give judgment based on politics rather than the law. Recall the issue of the mandatory electronic transmission of polling unit results that were openly stated in the Electoral Act 2022 and in the regulations and guidelines of the Electoral Act 2022 as done by INEC. And the provisions are there, very explicit. Yet the courts came out to say that it was a discretionary thing on INEC to electronically transmit. And the whole idea of rule of law, why you make law, is to exclude discretionary powers of agencies. Everything must be done in accordance with the law. So I share his concern about the competence, and I would rather use the word complicity, because a lot of our judges are very intelligent. If you talk about competence, I have presented my cases before a lot of them. I am rather worried more about complicity than even the competence, which I think many of them have. But the learned justice also should understand that even when he was in authority, he was also as controversial as the people he's talking about now. Because I recall that at a certain point, there was a suspension on him based on certain things that are allegedly based on complicity. If you recall, the issue of arresting Sokoto State judgment, if you recall, the issue of some form of allegedly phone leaks and all those things, and the issue of judgments that people felt very uncomfortable with, like in the Southwest, 3 states were judicially transferred to another party. And then that was the time that the cases end in Court of Appeal. It was because of certain things then that were discovered that the Constitution had to be amended, that the gubernatorial petitions should end in the Supreme Court. So I agree with him. I share the concerns, including even when he was on the bench. So let's have a holistic approach to dealing with the competence and complicity of the people on the bench. The bench is made to be self-cleansing. But I must say that the National Judicial Council, that has the repository of power of cleansing of the judiciary, they should step up more to investigate and ensure that the bench is cleaned up, especially in electoral matters.
Indeed, Mr. Okonkwo. Let's talk about the issue of competence that you raised earlier, and of course the cleansing process of the bench, as it were. Justice Salami says the appointment to the High Court appears to be treated largely as a promotion avenue for magistrates. What are your thoughts on that?
Like I said, I completely agree with the learned judge for his concerns. But what I am saying is that these concerns were also very prevalent even when he was on the bench. I don't know why in Nigeria, when people leave office, they begin to see very clearly. But when they are in the office, they appear as if there is an echo or something that covered their eyes. That the same thing they practice when they leave bench, they start seeing that it is not appropriate. As the president of the Court of Appeal, I recall one time that they even wanted to promote him to the Supreme Court. Ordinarily, it would have been something of joy. But he said that this is a Greek gift. So you can imagine when a judge is preferring to be the Court of Appeal judge rather than being the Supreme Court judge, just because he's the president of the Court of Appeal. So what I am saying in essence is that our bench needs cleansing. What is it that is so fruitful and so beautiful about being the president of the Court of Appeal that the learned justice preferred to remain in the Court of Appeal if he will be the president rather than being promoted to the Supreme Court? So we really need to interrogate all these things and ensure that the bench is cleansed. I remember Justice Daltijo, he even went forward to say that it is becoming something of an inheritance when judges of the higher level would prefer their own children rather than based on competence. He said he hardly recognizes the bench that he was employed to. So I share the concerns of these great legal luminaries. But I would want the ones that are sitting presently on the bench, on the high level of the bench, to take this gauntlet, to take these concerns now, so that it is not when they leave the bench, they will still start seeing clearly what they can change now that they are on the bench. So I am pleading that they should not wait until they leave before they become before they become closer to theology rather than being theological now that they are on the bench.
And speaking of theology and personality and ethics and all that, we all know that the weakness in the justice system is not just corruption, but it's also a lack of courage. So from your own practitioner's perspective as a lawyer, what can be done to address this, as it's not an academic deficiency, but something more of a moral, ethical, personality issue?
it is very simple and very clear. The mode of appointment has to be rejigged, and there has to be an accountability mechanism where a man cannot appoint his own children or people he has interest in when he is everybody in charge of it. Now, the mode of appointment, the reason why the judiciary is a branch of government and they are not part of the people that are elected by the people, is to ensure that all the qualifications needed for the judicial officer is fulfilled before the person is appointed. It's supposed to be a divine job that should be holy and acceptable by the Almighty God, meaning that they are expected to live their life a living sacrifice, because they are standing on behalf of God to deliver judgment of their whole, fellow human beings. It is more dangerous to have a judge who is corrupt than a thief that is in the china shop. What we are saying is that the mode of appointment should be very transparent, very accountable, and conflict of interest should be avoided. Nobody should be a judge in his own cause. That is what they taught us. So no judge should be able to appoint his own siblings or his own children without adequate checks and balances. Now, the judges need to be trained regularly. They should update their knowledge. I believe that if they are trained continually, especially in electoral matters. Now, this Electoral Matters 2026 has come out now. There's a need to organize a training workshop for the judges where the differences, the improvements on this Electoral Act will be explained to them by experts, so that they will be better equipped when they enter into electoral matters. Because electoral matters are sui generis. They are on their own kind, they are of their own kind, and they do not follow the same civil proceedings and the rules of procedure of the civil proceedings. And judges ought to be updated and taught. I realize respectfully, as a member of that presidential team, that some of them, we are not acquainted with the Electoral Act 2022, because that was the first time the use of card readers and technology was being introduced in our Electoral Act. So I remembered from their questions, from their inquisitiveness when they were on the bench, that some of them did not have the requisite commensurate knowledge, and they started trusting on the knowledge of the lawyers. So whichever one was more charismatic, they were willing to be swayed to that rather than the principles of law and the technicalities of the technologies that are being used. So the judges ought to be trained and they have to be updated. It's a continuous thing so that they will be updated on the knowledge that is available. Again, there is a need for punishment. There is a need for punishment. If you do not deter any evil practice, any illegal practice, any bad practice, it must repeat itself. And when it repeats itself, from where I come from, they say that even if an abomination is allowed to last up to a year, it becomes the culture. We are moving into a situation where it is becoming cultural for the members of the bench to associate freely, attend parties freely, to be so associated with the members of the world that it will be difficult for their independence and impartiality to be maintained. Every profession has its own peculiarities and its own ethics. The members of the bench must have to observe their own ethics, and they have to be able to punish every antisocial behavior amongst them in order to deter others. So it is very important. We must have to update them. They must have to, the appointment must have to be transparent and accountable, and punishment must be laid out for any antisocial behavior.
Yes, very well said. Kenneth Okonkwo, always great to have you on the program. Thank you so much for your insight on this topic.
I don't know if you carry me good here.
The former president
We'll talk about mercy. How many hours? Yeah, come back later in the evening for another section.